You know, we always talk about the champions, the ones who lift the trophy. But some of the best stories in sports, they're not about that final win. They're about the agonizing, unforgettable journey of getting so close. Today, we're diving into one of those stories, the incredible and incredibly heartbreaking legacy of the Vancouver Canucks. Since they joined the NHL way back in 1970, there's one number that's kind of haunted the Vancouver Canucks. 0. As in, 0 Stanley Cups. It's the big, stark fact of their history. But honestly, it doesn't even begin to tell the whole story. See, that's because while they've never lifted the ultimate prize, they have clawed their way to the championship series 3 different times. 3 totally distinct eras, each with its own incredible story of hope, passion, and, well, yeah, heartbreak.
Okay, so let's start with that first trip, back in 1982. This wasn't just unexpected, this was a straight-up Cinderella story, a playoff run that came completely, and I mean completely, out of nowhere.
So just how improbable was this? Well, this team wasn't even really supposed to be there. They finished the regular season with a losing record. Nobody, and I mean nobody, picked them to make any noise at all in the playoffs. Then, in the middle of this wild run, a moment of pure frustration accidentally creates a legend. Their coach, Roger Neilson, got so fed up with the referees that he grabbed a white towel, stuck it on a hockey stick, and held it up like a sarcastic white flag, a mock surrender. And when the team came back home to Vancouver, the fans went absolutely nuts with it. They brought their own towels, tens of thousands of them, waving them all in unison. This little act of protest became an iconic tradition called towel power, and you still see it in arenas everywhere today. That moment became so fundamental to who this team is that there's actually a statue of Roger Neilson, towel held high, right outside their arena to this day. It's a permanent tribute to the defiant, underdog spirit of that team. But every fairy tale has to end, and this one had a brutal ending. In the final, they ran into a complete buzzsaw, the New York Islanders dynasty, a team going for their 3rd straight championship. The Islanders had 41 more points than the Canucks. It was a mismatch, and the Cinderella story ended in a 4-game sweep. Okay, fast forward 12 years. The Canucks are back in the final, but this time, the story is completely different. This was no scrappy underdog, this team was loaded with superstars, and the expectations were huge.
This team was really built around a core of absolute legends. You had Trevor Linden, the courageous heart-and-soul captain. You had the electrifying Pavel Bure, the Russian rocket who could score from anywhere. And in goal, you had the acrobatic Kirk McLean, who was just unbelievable.
And this playoff run, man, it was packed with moments that are now part of hockey lore. In the very first round, they were facing elimination, and their goalie, Kirk McLean, made one of the most famous saves of all time. A desperate, sliding kick save right on the goal line. It's known simply as the save. And if that wasn't enough, in that same series, it was Pavel Bure who sealed the deal. He gets a breakaway pass in overtime of the deciding 7th game, makes a move on the goalie, and scores. The city just exploded. It was pure magic. And the entire season, all of it, came down to this, a Game 7. Now you gotta understand, Game 7 is the single most intense thing in hockey. It is one game, winner take all, for the Stanley Cup. There are no second chances. And they came so agonizingly close. They battled the New York Rangers right down to the final buzzer of that 7th game, but they fell just short, losing by a single goal, 3-2. And to make it even more of a heroic tragedy, their captain, Trevor Linden, was playing with cracked ribs, and he still scored both of Vancouver's goals in that final game. It was just an unbelievable effort and a devastating loss. All right, let's jump forward again, another 17 years to 2011. And this 3rd trip to the final, it's a totally different story. This time they weren't underdogs, and they weren't just a fun team on the rise. They were, without a doubt, the best team in the entire league. The whole team was built around 2 of the most unique players the game has ever seen, identical twin brothers, Henrik and Daniel Sedin. The way they played together, it was like they had some kind of telepathy. It was mesmerizing to watch, and they were at the absolute peak of their powers. And they were dominant. I mean, look at this. They won the President's Trophy for the best record in the whole league, not once, but 2 years in a row. So in 2011, this wasn't just a good team, they were an absolute powerhouse. So think about it. In '82, making the finals was a miracle.
In '94, it was a thrilling, unexpected ride. But in 2011, the expectation was simple: win the Stanley Cup. Anything less was going to be a massive failure.
And for the third time, it all came down to the final game, another Game 7. And for the third time, the dream died. They lost to the Boston Bruins, at home. It was arguably the most painful of all three defeats.
So what do you do with a history like this, right? 3 completely separate eras, 3 incredible runs to the final, and 3 devastating losses right at the very last hurdle. What does that kind of history create?
When you just lay it all out like this, it's just brutal. 3 different decades, 3 different opponents, but always the same result. The top of the mountain was right there, every single time, but they just could never take that final step.
But maybe a team's legacy isn't only about that final victory. The Canucks' real identity, you could argue, was forged in all these shared moments. The defiant rise of towel power, the heroism of a captain playing through injury, the magic of a Russian superstar, the dominance of the Sedin twins. Theirs is a legacy built on the journey, not the destination.
Which really leaves us with this question, doesn't it? Is a team's story defined only by the championships it wins, or is it the collection of all those moments, the shared passion, and even the heartbreaking near misses that truly make it unforgettable?